Hey everyone, my name is Job. I hope you're doing well today. Today we are setting up a new bullet journal for the 2019-2020 school year, so I hope you follow along and find some cool ideas. But before we get started, I just want to give you a rough rundown as to my bullet journaling history. Back in 2016, I started bullet journaling in this grid notebook in my passport-sized Midori Traveler's notebook as a way to organize my tasks and to-do lists and to minimize the amount of post-its I was using. I used this system for about 2 years. I used it in 2016 and 2017, and then in 2018 I moved into a cool A6 dot grid notebook from Leuchtturm, and I bought the black colorway. I used this for about 3 months, and then I abandoned it because it was too tiny. I had a lot of stuff that I needed to write down, and writing in this tiny notebook just felt weird, especially for work, because I would write down a whole bunch of stuff and then run out of space, and then I just felt not that inspired to use it. But back in early July, I started toying with the idea of getting back into bullet journaling, and I gave myself a few weeks to use this system again, and I actually kind of liked it. So I'm gonna try it out in a new journal, a bigger journal, in an A5 size notebook, and I'm gonna try using it for work because I was using this weird hybrid system with my calendar, Apple Calendar, and my reminders app on my phone and computer, along with my traveler's notebook, but it was just not working out. So I want to see if this might be more effective because I do have a lot of tasks to write down in any given school day, and I have a lot of notes that I take throughout the day that kind of need a home because I write a lot of things on post-its. But enough of the rambling. Let me tell you what notebook I'm going to be using for this 2019 bullet journal. So I purchased this Scribbles That Matter A5 dot grid pro notebook. That's such a mouthful, but I've heard great reviews. The paper is amazing. I'm just gonna say that. You can pause the screen right now to see the different features that this notebook has, but I'll give you a really quick rundown. It has 160 GSM paper with 160 pages. The paper is super thick and there's no ghosting whatsoever. It comes with a key, index, and pen test pages. There's a riveted pen loop, and it is overall a lot thicker than the Leuchtturm A5 dotted notebook. So in a few seconds, I'm going to show you the A5 dotted notebook from Leuchtturm, however you pronounce it. I know I'm butchering it, so I'm sorry. But I actually purchased that for a fellow teacher as a really, really late birthday gift. And I was toying with the idea of getting a Leuchtturm notebook again, but it just ghosted so much, and it was really bugging me because I use a lot of fountain pens and I use brush pens, and I just don't like the look of it ghosting. It just looks a little bit messy sometimes. So thank you to Amanda Rach Lee. I've been stalking her YouTube channel because all of her bullet journaling videos are so helpful, and she recommended this notebook. I think she used it in 2018. I know she's using a Archer and Olive notebook right now, which is also a really cool notebook. I just couldn't find it in Canada, so maybe that's what I'll use in the following school year, or if this goes well, maybe I'll use it for my personal planning needs. But let me tell you the supplies that I'm going to use for today's setup. I'm going to use a ruler, an HB pencil, my Staedtler eraser, and my mini scissors. I'm not going to use scissors that often, as well as a glue tape runner. I also used a Sakura Pigma brush pen, a Micron 03, and a Micron 05 fine liner. I also used a Uniball Signo white gel pen in the 0.7 tip, and the Tombow Fudenoske brush pen with the soft nib, and that's the one that comes in the black barrel, and then the Zebra Mildliners in the colors gray, brown, and green, and lastly a clip to hold the pages open. I know I kind of went through that really quickly, but I will leave a list in the description bar below if you want to know the detailed list. So let's get journaling. I started by putting my name in the namespace at the beginning of my bullet journal, and then I filled in my key. So you can pause right now to take a look at the key that I'm using, but since the theme of this bullet journal is simplicity, I kept my key as simple as possible. And I've been using this key for almost like 3 years now with a few minor changes, so I kind of have it drilled into my head, but it thought I would still write it down because there is a given space for it. The first page of my bullet journal is dedicated to this grid spacing spread, and this is a super handy spread if you're getting into bullet journaling, because this basically is a cheat sheet for you to split your page into halves or thirds or even fourths. So I stuck with splitting my page into halves and thirds, horizontally and vertically. As you can see, I basically wrote this in pencil first because I didn't want to make any mistakes, because this is going to be a key aspect in my bullet journal because I'm going to be flipping to this a lot. And if I make a mistake here, that means I will make future mistakes in my bullet journal. And I actually did make a mistake here. I initially labeled each dot instead of each square. It doesn't really make a difference, but sometimes I think it works better because when you're counting or dividing a spread into halves or thirds, you're probably counting it by the squares instead of the dots. But that's a minor detail, and later on you'll see me come in and actually add additional numbers to the spread, and those are just the numbers for each box or each tiny grid box. But either way, whichever works for you, you can use the dot number or the square or grid number, but as long as you find a way that works for you, you should go with that. So I finished that spread and I added a little monthly calendar at the bottom just to see how many spaces it'll take up if I put the month and the days of the week. So it's actually a 7x7 square, if you were wondering, and that also helped me get ready and I guess split up the page beside it, because this page beside the grid spacing spread is my year at a glance spread. And I was struggling with the idea of using either one page or 2 pages, but I ended up using only 1 page because I only needed to write down the months for August all the way to July, since the school year here in Vancouver starts in September and it ends in June, but I thought I would give myself July as well, because I actually, this year I taught summer school. I don't know if I'll teach summer school next year, but since I think I'll be teaching summer school next year, thought I would use or put in July as well, because I'll probably still be using this bullet journal in July of 2020, but that's almost a year from now, so let's not even talk about that. But this year at a glance spread is going to be super handy, because if I need to refer to a date in the future, I will have this page at the beginning of my bullet journal to refer to. And overall, it just looks so satisfying to look at, because I don't know, just the idea of handwriting all these months is ridiculous to me already, and it looks so good. So I don't know, it's just visually appealing to me. Sorry, I can't speak, getting tongue-tied. That's just a testament to how long I have not recorded a voiceover, but I apologize for my absence. I'll talk about that in a later video. But as you can see, bullet journaling or setting up a new bullet journal takes a really long time, so I had to take a break. I actually watched a movie in between, and this is me journaling, I think like at 10 p.m. and I was now tackling on the hardest part of this setup, and it is the monthly calendar spread. And I made a mistake in the first monthly calendar that I made, because I made a calendar that had 6 rows and 7 columns. So I got the 7 columns correct, but I didn't need 6 rows because the month usually only extends to 5 rows instead of 6, so I kind of wasted some space there, but that's all right. And then I kept the days of the week very minimal. I used a Micron 03 to handwrite all of those days of the week, and then it looked way too plain, so I'm going to go in a little bit later. I just let it dry first, and then I'm going to use a zebra Mildliner to fill that in. For September, well, I started the September spread right away because I didn't want to make the same mistake that I made in the August spread. So this time I'm going to make sure that I have 7 columns and only 6 rows so I can maximize the space. And if you're wondering, each day of the week in this monthly calendar is actually a 6x7 square. Or that's not a square, 6x7 rectangle. Wow. And that just shows that I have been in summer mode for too long. But as you can see in the September spread, I wanted to change up the days of the week label. So I used my Pigma Micron, I guess, brush pen to fill in like a black rounded, I guess it's kind of like a blob or rounded rectangle if you want to be fancy. And then I wrote the days of the week using a fine liner. I think I use I used the Pigma, not Pigma Micron. I used the Uniball Signo in white. And then I went back to the August spread and used my gray Mildliner to add some accents. So each, I guess, date in the calendar is highlighted with a gray Mildliner just so it looks a little bit more visually appealing. And then I did this for all 12 months, and you might be wondering, why are you doing that? You're just basically making a planner. But I know some people use their bullet journal very differently. Some people make a monthly spread at the beginning of every year, or not every year, beginning of every month, and then they just use a future log to write down anything that might happen in the future. But for me, the future log system doesn't work because I am a very visual person, and looking at the days of the week vertically like that for all 30 or 31 days just looks, I don't know, overwhelming to me. So I made the executive decision to make a monthly calendar spread for every single month in a calendar year, and use that as my future log. So this serves as my future log as well as my monthly spread. But I actually will make, I'll show you later, but there's this cool monthly spread that I'm going to add, and I'm going to kind of use and create at the beginning of every month, but that's for a little bit later. But as you can see, I made, I think, a total of 12 monthly calendars. It was very tiring. I think I slept at 2 a.m. That day, and then I continued it the following morning. It's just very time consuming to create a monthly calendar for 12 months of the year, but I did it anyways because I know that I will use it and I will refer to it a lot. I might not even fill things in, but I like looking at the calendar like that. And I know I have a year at a glance, but there's something about looking at a big calendar, so please don't judge me. Everyone has their own way of planning, and for me, this is what works, and it just took a really long time to set up, but I know that it'll pay off in the future. Right now, I split my page into thirds, so that I have 6 columns in a 2-page spread. And then I wrote a little monthly calendar for the months of September, October, November, December, January, and February. So 6 months. And this is a future log. I already said that I don't want to use a future log, but I revisited a whole bunch of videos, bullet journaling videos, mostly from with Wendy and Amanda Rachel Lee and some other bullet journalists, and I thought that I would still use this just in case that I have a lot to write down. And as you all know, teaching is heavily related to planning. There's a lot of forward planning and looking at dates in the future and planning meetings with parents and whatnot. So if I run out of space in my monthly calendar spreads, I thought I would have a future log just in case. And I only did the first 6 months because I just want to see if I actually use it. And now I am creating another monthly spread. You might be wondering why, but this is the monthly spread I was talking about. It basically just has the days of the week for the month of September, as well as the days of the week. I said that earlier. Vertically, and on the left hand side of the spread, I'm gonna put events, and on the right hand side I have long-term to-do lists. And this spread is from with Wendy specifically. This is how she likes to plan, and I really like the way it looks and the way it works in terms of productivity, because there's a lot of long-term to-dos that I have a whole bunch of post-its in my traveler's notebook in terms of long-term to-dos, and I thought a full page spread would be useful for that. And then the month events page, I wrote that down because if there's like a big event or like a basketball practice or a game, I thought I would write it down just for those big events there, so I can refer to those at the beginning of every week just to see what's coming up. And then, yeah, that's the end of it in terms of like the monthly spreads. I will not be using a weekly spread for now, but I'll keep you guys updated if I end up doing that. But mainly I'll be using my bullet journal for daily tasks. And now I'm doing a lot of like nitpicky stuff now. So I really like that this bullet journal from Scribbles That Matter has a key and index, but I feel like it just I don't know, it just doesn't look like me. That brush lettering for the words key and index looks like my brush lettering, to be honest, but I didn't really like the icon that they use for the key and that pencil, so I thought I would just cover it up with this bluish gray post-it, and it kind of matches the blue-gray grid lines in the key and index. And I just used my Tombow Fudenoske brush pen in the I think it's a soft nib. Then I added a gray drop shadow. I think that's going to be my main theme for this bullet journal, like a lot of grays and blacks and whites. And then I also am planning to use a brown Mildliner to fill in any personal events. I'm going to try and stay away from adding personal events as this is a work bullet journal, but if there is something that's urgent, or if I am away or sick, I want to note that down in my bullet journal. But this is the final flip through. As you can see, there's a page that has my name, and I kind of want to cover it up and put my last name because the kids know me as Mr. G at school, or my full last name, but yeah, it's kind of weird to just have Job there, so maybe I'll fix that. And then I have my index pages, and I like how there are 3 index pages, so if I have a lot of things to write down in my index, I have room to flip back and note any pages that I want to remember. So after the index is my grid spacing spread, and if there's one thing that you take from this setup video, please take this grid spacing spread, because it'll make your life so much more easy in terms of planning and dividing your spread up. And this is my August spread. Basically all my monthly calendar spreads look the same, but for me this is like the cornerstone or the key tenet in my bullet journal, because if I have any forward planning, I can use these spreads and pencil events and things down. And in terms of the pens that I will use in the regular school year, on the daily, I will use a Uniball, no, not Uniball, the Pilot Friction pens in black. I actually not custom ordered, but I was scouring the internet and stores for a finer Uniball friction pen, and there actually is a 0.38 millimeter Uniball Pilot Friction pen. Oh man, that was really a handful. So that's handy because you can erase the pen marks if you need to change things, and as you all know, in teaching a lot of things change and happen, so I think that'll be really useful. You might be wondering, where's all the teachery stuff, and where's all the curriculum and planning and timetable and all that teachery stuff. I just want to see how I use this in September 1st, and then maybe I'll report back as to what I'm doing or changing, because I don't want to add all these pages that I'm not going to use, because as beautiful as this journal is, there are only 160 pages, and I want this journal to last me the full year, because I don't want to move into a new journal halfway through this school year in terms of productivity and whatnot, because it'll take me forever to set this notebook again if I ever have to transfer all of that information to another notebook. So I'm kind of trying to be more mindful of the pages and the spaces that I'm using in here. I don't want to add random spreads just for ideas and whatnot, because I know that's something that I can fit into one of my other notebooks, or something that doesn't need to be in my bullet journal that has all the essentials. So this is mainly for planning and for events and just keeping track of things. So if things change, I will definitely let you know. And I know there might be some teachers out there that want some suggestions, so hopefully check back in a few months and I'll probably make an update video. But hopefully you found this flip through a little bit helpful, because the setup for this bullet journal is pretty similar to most bullet journals, but moving forward it's gonna morph and change to the way I use it, and I hope I get a lot from it in terms of productivity, and I hope that it kind of streamlines my my planning in terms of school, because I feel a little bit muddled in terms of my planning, but I'm excited to use this because I think it'll bring more focus, and it will kind of be a center for all of my post-its and ideas and whatnot. So hopefully it works out and I end up using it for the whole year, but if not, I would still recommend this notebook because it's beautiful and you can use it for drawing or even like brush lettering and whatnot, because the paper is so smooth. The Mildliners don't even make a dent. Even the Pigma brush pen, which is really heavy duty ink, doesn't really like bleed through. There's a tiny little bit of ghosting, but I wouldn't even count it because I would have to hold it up into the light to see the ghosting, so I wouldn't count it. And this is the Uniball, I keep calling it Uniball, the Friction 0.38 slim erasable pen, and I'm writing my first event in August, and it just says that I want to go into work on the 30th to set up for the first week of school. But I think that's a little bit of too much information for you guys, so that's pretty much it for my bullet journal setup. I hope you found this video useful. I apologize for being away from this channel so long. Basically May and June are the busiest months in terms of like wrapping up the school year, and I kind of let my channel it kind of just slipped away from me because of all of things that were happening at school. And I also wrapped up my my term at the university that I'm going to in terms of my master's, so there was that. So I don't know, I'm just making excuses, I'm sorry, but I'm back and it's the summer, and hopefully I'll be back to uploading videos on the regular. But thank you so much for watching. I will see you all next time. Bye everyone.